The year is 1928. Within the cold, unyielding stone of Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, a silence hangs heavy, broken only by the distant clang of steel on steel. In a dimly lit cell, a man sat in silence. A guard handed him paper and pencil, an act of kindness that would unleash a torrent of pure evil onto the page. What he wrote became one of the darkest confessions in American history, a manifesto of hate from a life dedicated to destruction. That man was Carl Panzram. Born in 1891 in rural Minnesota, Carl was raised on a struggling farm where affection was scarce and hardship was constant. Children acted like adults before they were ready, their small bodies pushed to the limits of labor in an unforgiving world that taught him his first lessons in bitterness. By age 7, he was stealing. By 11, he was drinking and sent to reform school, a place that promised to fix him but only broke him completely. It was an academy of torment, where systematic abuse at the hands of his supposed guardians meticulously dismantled any trace of empathy, reforging him into something monstrous. He later wrote with chilling clarity, "I was taught how to lie, how to hate, and how to hurt." As a teenager, he became a drifter, a ghost haunting the nation's railways. He embraced a life of crime, stealing not to survive but because he enjoyed it, finding profound pleasure in taking from a world he despised. His audacity knew no bounds. He broke into former President William Howard Taft's home, stealing money he used to buy a yacht. This vessel was no pleasure craft. It was a symbol of power he twisted into his own kingdom of terror. That boat became a floating crime scene, a private abattoir on the open water where unsuspecting sailors he hired vanished without a trace, their stories swallowed by the sea. Carl traveled across continents, a phantom committing crimes in dozens of countries under false names. His physical power was legendary. He escaped jails by bending metal bars with his bare hands. By 1928, his luck ran out. At Leavenworth, he opened up to guard Henry Leeser, writing his confession. It was a declaration of war against humanity. "I don't believe in man, God, nor the devil. I hate the whole damn human race." He claimed to have killed 21 people. His only regret was that he hadn't killed more. On September 5, 1930, Carl Panzram was executed by hanging. Standing on the gallows, he remained defiant to the end. His last words were a final, contemptuous snarl. "Hurry it up, I could have done this myself." The air in the South Carolina backwoods hangs thick and heavy, a suffocating blanket of heat and humidity. In this forgotten corner of America crushed by the Great Depression, a different kind of darkness was taking root. In March of 1933, Donald Henry Gaskins came into the world, not as a blessing, but like a curse whispered on the wind. He was born too soon, a tiny, fragile thing in a world that had no room for weakness. His family, already drowning in poverty, saw him as just another mouth to feed. They called him Junior, a name that wasn't his own, a constant reminder that he was an afterthought. In the squalor of his childhood home, affection was a foreign language. The only lessons he learned were taught with fists and cold indifference. The world as he saw it was a simple, brutal equation. You are either the one inflicting pain or the one receiving it. There was no middle ground. He made his choice early, not with a conscious thought, but with the instinct of a cornered animal. He chose to be the one doing the hurting. The choice manifested in small, horrific ways. By the age of 5, the neighborhood pets began to disappear or turn up mutilated. This wasn't the clumsy cruelty of a child, it was methodical, a quiet, focused study in the mechanics of suffering. By 11, he graduated to People. He found a home in a local gang, where his talent for violence was not just accepted but celebrated. Robbery and assault became his trade, the fear in his victims' eyes, his currency. At 15, the law caught up with him, but the reform school that was meant to save him became his finishing school. In its cold, unforgiving halls, he found himself on the other side of the equation, the one getting hurt. He was beaten, brutalized, and sexually assaulted. The experience didn't break him, it forged him. In the darkness of his cell, a cold, hard vow took shape. A promise whispered to himself with absolute certainty, "I will never be a victim again." It was the moment the monster was truly born. When he walked out at 17, the boy was gone. In his place was something else, something that had learned to hide. He smiled now, a wide, easy grin, but it was a mask. It never reached his eyes. Those remained cold, watchful, calculating. He had learned to mimic humanity. In 1955, he put his new skills to the test. The target was a young girl, the motive, a simple insurance scam. There was no rage, no passion. It was a business transaction. A life was just a line item on a ledger, easily erased for profit. Inevitably, he was caught again, this time on lesser charges. Back in the familiar jungle of prison, he wasted no time re-establishing his dominance. Another inmate had something Gaskins wanted. Not money, not contraband, but something far more trivial, a preferred seat in the cafeteria. The man refused to move, so Gaskins killed him. When asked why, his answer was chilling in its simplicity: because I wanted his seat at the table. It was a terrifying declaration. His desires, no matter how petty, were worth more than a human life. Paroled in 1961, Gaskins was finally unleashed. The lonely highways of the American Southeast became his personal hunting ground. He developed a taste for a specific type of prey: the transient, the forgotten. Runaways fleeing broken homes, drifters with no destination, sex workers trying to survive another night, people whose disappearance might not even register. He called them his coastal kills, a name that sounded more like a fishing trip than a spree of butchery. From 1969 to 1975, the bodies piled up. He would later claim between 80 and 90 victims, a ghost army of the lost, their final moments known only to him. But his appetite for cruelty was not confined to strangers. In 1973, the circle of his violence began to close in on itself. He murdered his own teenage niece and her friend. The boundary between predator and family had dissolved. There was no one he wouldn't kill. Pregnant women, small children who had the misfortune of witnessing his crimes, anyone who posed even the slightest inconvenience was eliminated. He buried them in his own backyard, turning a quiet suburban plot into a private, gruesome graveyard. When the law finally unearthed his secrets in 1975, he confessed with a chilling detachment, devoid of remorse. He didn't refer to them as people. He called them my things. Even on death row, surrounded by the state's highest security, Gaskins was not finished. He was hired for one last hit. His target, fellow death row inmate, Rudolph Tyner. With cunning and patience, Gaskins constructed a bomb disguised as a walkie-talkie. He passed it to Tyner, instructing him to hold it to his ear to talk. The resulting explosion was so powerful it decapitated Tyner instantly. This final, audacious act of violence earned him the title, the meanest man in America, and sealed his fate. On September 6, 1991, as guards led him to the electric chair, Donald Pee Wee Gaskins showed no fear, no remorse. He simply nodded politely, the mask of civility firmly in place until the very end. Detroit, 1974. Women started dying, strangled, drowned, beaten. Different methods, different neighborhoods, no connections. This was Carl Eugene Watts, a killer who believed certain women were evil and needed to be erased. Born in 1953, Carl contracted viral meningitis at age 8, leaving him cold and detached. By 15, he was attacking women. At 20, the urges became unstoppable. He didn't need motives or patterns, he just killed, moving like smoke through cities, invisible to police. For 6 years in Detroit, then Houston, bodies piled up. He became the Sunday morning slasher, attacking women preparing for church. No forensic evidence, no witnesses, until 1982 when Melinda Aguila escaped by jumping from a balcony. When arrested, Carl confessed to dozens of murders but got a plea deal, only 60 years for burglary and attempted murder. The public was outraged. Later, Michigan charged him with additional murders. He died in prison in 2007, never fully confessing to all his crimes. His victims numbered over 100, many never identified. Los Angeles, 1960s. In the shadows of Skid Row, homeless men were found with throats slashed, surrounded by strange symbols and cups filled with blood. The killer, Vaughn Greenwood, the Skid Row slasher. Abandoned as a child, bouncing between foster homes, Vaughn developed delusions of purification. He believed he was cleansing the city by eliminating the unworthy. Homeless men society had forgotten. Between 1964 to 1975, 11 men died in ritualistic killings. Each scene was staged with grotesque precision, bodies posed, symbols carved into flesh. Victims were washed after death as part of his twisted purification ritual. The terror ended when William Graham survived an attack and identified his attacker. Police found Vaughn in an abandoned church, sitting among candles with a makeshift altar covered in blood-stained clothing and a butcher's knife. His journals revealed his belief that he was a holy warrior, releasing souls from sin. He was sentenced to life in prison, dying in 2020, alone and forgotten. In the unforgiving expanse of Alaska, Robert Hansen lived a life of quiet respectability. To his neighbors, he was just the local baker. But this was a mask for a chilling darkness. This quiet man wasn't just a baker, he was a predator who turned the vast wilderness into his personal hunting ground. He wasn't hunting animals, he was hunting people. Born in Iowa in 1939, Hansen was relentlessly bullied for his severe acne and a stutter. This torment fueled a deep-seated rage and a lifelong feeling of rejection. He found solace and power in hunting, an obsession that would soon twist into a horrifying ritual. By the 1970s in Anchorage, he preyed on vulnerable women, dancers, sex workers, those he believed society wouldn't miss. Luring them to his home, the friendly baker vanished. In the soundproofed confines of his basement, he would chain, assault, and torture them. Then came his signature. Hansen owned a small plane. He would fly his traumatized victims deep into the Alaskan wilderness. Landing in the middle of nowhere, he would release them, sometimes barefoot in the snow. Then, the hunt began. With his high-powered rifle, he tracked them through the woods like game. The vast wilderness became his perfect graveyard. Between 1971 and 1983, women vanished, often dismissed by police as runaways. The silence was broken in 1983 when 17-year-old Cindy Paulson escaped as Hansen loaded his plane. Running barefoot and handcuffed, her harrowing testimony was the key investigators desperately needed. Her story led police to Hansen's home. Inside, they found jewelry and IDs from missing women, kept as sick trophies. The most damning find was an aviation map marked with 24 X's, a chilling ledger of death scattered across Alaska. Confronted with the map, Hansen confessed to killing 17 women. He was sentenced to 461 years plus life, dying in prison in 2014. He remains a terrifying reminder that evil can wear the most ordinary of masks, the quiet neighbor who baked birthday cakes by day and hunted humans by night. These men walked among us. Carl Panzram wrote manifestos of hate. Donald Gaskin smiled while describing his coastal kills. Carl Watts believed he was cleansing evil. Vaughn Greenwood thought murder was holy duty. Robert Hansen was the helpful neighbor. They weren't monsters hiding in shadows. They were the man fixing your car, the baker down the street, the quiet stranger offering help. They proved that evil doesn't announce itself. It smiles, it helps, it waits. Their victims, hundreds of people, were someone's children, parents, friends. Lives cut short by men who saw other humans as objects to be eliminated. In studying these cases, we don't glorify the killers. We remember the forgotten, and we learn to recognize that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like us.